Hello, and thank you for taking an interest in this project. I'm asking for your help so that I can share my story with the world. I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, but this story is so much greater than that. It's about historical abuse on a massive scale, compounded decades later by blatant negligence, incompetence, and corruption throughout the system. But first, let me go back to the beginning. Starting in 1970, when I was 9 years old, I was repeatedly molested by a family friend named Fenwick MacIntosh. Over the next 5 years, I was abused hundreds of times. Once I was old enough to understand what had happened to me, the psychological effects began to take their toll. I tried to have a normal life, but underneath it all, I knew that he was probably still out there abusing other innocent children. So, at 33 years of age, I walked into a police station, I gave my story, and I named my abuser. But that's when a new nightmare began that would last 18 terrible years. The first thing I learned was that MacIntosh was living in India. Authorities issued an arrest warrant in hopes of catching him if he tried to re-enter the country. It was also revealed that he had been convicted of sexual offenses in the 1980s before he left the country. I found out that his passport would soon expire, so I hounded officials until they added him to the passport control list so that once it expired, he'd be forced to return home. Somehow he managed to get his passport renewed, and he was free to travel for the next 5 years. Prosecutors decided to begin the complicated process to have MacIntosh extradited from India. Years passed as more local men came forward to say that MacIntosh had abused them as boys. It was clear he had many victims in our community alone. It had been 7 years since I first made my statement, and the prosecution now had a total of 43 charges against Finn MacIntosh. I was afraid he would manage to get another passport, so I raised the red flag again. Police and passport officials claimed they were on top of it, but yet again he managed to get it renewed in India. Clearly something was going on. How was this twice convicted sex offender with a host of new charges pending able to keep getting passports? Who was helping him? It would take an unbelievable 5 more years for our government to wake up and officially request extradition. Somebody was asleep at the wheel. In June 2007, 12 and a half long years after I first went to police, Fenwick MacIntosh was finally arrested in India and extradited. But getting MacIntosh on home turf was not the end of the battle. Legal maneuvering delayed the trial for another 3 years. MacIntosh was eventually convicted of 17 charges and sentenced to just 5.5 years. His defense team quickly appealed. They argued that because it had taken so long to get him home from India, his right to a speedy trial had been violated. Unbelievably, MacIntosh was set free, leaving me and the other victims feeling completely betrayed by the system. 18 years of pain and sacrifice, and all for nothing. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but a high school friend, now a journalist, agreed to take a look at my files, and she found some highly confidential documents relating to Finn MacIntosh's passport. Back in 1998, prior to beginning the extradition process, Canadian authorities had tried to force MacIntosh back from India by revoking his passport. MacIntosh hired a lawyer who fought the revocation, arguing that, among other things, he carried top-secret government clearance. For some unknown reason, the Department of Justice abandoned the revocation attempt, and MacIntosh was able to keep his passport. I am outraged that there are people in positions of power who let this happen. The survivors got nothing. No justice, no closure, while a convicted pedophile walked. I want the world to know the whole truth about what happened. So, I've partnered with a couple producers, including that high school friend, and we've been developing a documentary for over a year now. Believe me, there's a lot more to this story than I can talk about right here. By supporting this project, you will help us tell the true story about the MacIntosh case, and to make sure that a miscarriage of justice like this will never happen again. Thank you.
He was a predator. He was a predator in denial. He was a predator who did not have any remorse, no desire to be rehabilitated. So what's he going to do? He's going to keep doing what he's done, and he's done it for decades until he's dead. If he's given the opportunity, he'll do it again.
MacIntosh has never truly been held responsible for the dozens of sexual assault charges against him. This is a horrible case of justice delayed being justice denied.